Personal log entry. Earth date, September 15, 2157. Location, Singapore Space Center, Earth. Recording, High Representative Valarx. The descent through Earth's atmosphere was more colorful than expected. Their sun painted the clouds in shades that our language lacks words to describe. I must remember to update the diplomatic briefing documents. They failed to mention how the varying wavelengths of light would affect our crystalline vision arrays. Our landing platform hovers above what the humans call their Singapore Space Center. The architecture is a curious blend of angle. Personal log entry. Earth date, September 18, 2157. Location, Singapore Space Center, Diplomatic Wing. Recording, High Representative Valarx. 3 Earth days have passed since my arrival, and I find myself making unexpected entries in this log. Today's diplomatic dinner was meant to be a standard protocol event. Instead, it has forced me to reconsider several fundamental assumptions about human civilization. Deputy Ambassador Sofia Rodriguez arrived carrying what she called a family treasure, a small worn book filled with handwritten recipes. My visual array detected traces of oil stains and multiple handwriting styles spanning several generations. When I inquired about the document's preservation methods, she laughed. "The stains are part of its history," she explained, running her fingers over a particularly marked page. Each spot tells a story of a family gathering, a celebration, or sometimes a mistake that led to something wonderful. The concept of valuing imperfections remains difficult to process. The evening's chef, whom Sofia introduced as her cousin Elena, combined these traditional recipes with our species' nutritional requirements. The result was something unprecedented in my diplomatic experience. She called it fusion cuisine, though the term seems inadequate to describe the complexity of what I witnessed. I observed Elena working in what humans call a kitchen. Unlike our sterile nutrient preparation chambers, this space buzzed with seemingly chaotic energy. She moved between instruments without following any discernible pattern, yet each action flowed purposefully into the next. The aroma molecules triggered sensors I didn't know my species possessed. Dr. Chen noticed my fascination with the process. "Would you like to try making something?" she asked, offering me a curious implement she called a wooden spoon. Most of my staff remained in their environmental suits, recording from a safe distance, but I found myself accepting the tool. Elena guided my appendages through the motion of stirring a sauce. "Cooking isn't just about following recipes," she explained. "It's about feeling the moment when everything comes together." The sauce achieved proper molecular cohesion approximately 3.7 minutes before my calculations predicted it should have. When I mentioned this discrepancy, Sofia smiled. "Some things can't be calculated," she said. "That's what makes them special." The dinner itself proved even more intriguing. While my species cannot consume Earth food in its traditional form, Elena had created parallel dishes that mirrored the human meals in molecular structure while remaining compatible with our biology. As humans say, she captured the essence. I watched Dr. Chen and Sofia share stories between bites, their conversation weaving between topics in a pattern that initially seemed random, but gradually revealed subtle connections. They spoke of Earth's history, of personal memories, and of hopes for the future, all somehow linked to the food before us. Most surprising was their inclusion of my perspective. They asked questions about my homeworld's customs, not as diplomatic requirements, but with genuine curiosity. When I mentioned our civilization's focus on efficiency, Sofia challenged me gently. "But isn't there efficiency in joy?" she asked. "In creating moments that strengthen bonds between people or beings?" I have no diplomatic protocol for responding to such questions. End of day summary. Standard cultural exchange parameters exceeded. Human food preparation methods deserve deeper study. Recommend revision of efficiency metrics to include previously unconsidered variables. Personal note. Sofia has invited me to what she calls a cooking lesson tomorrow. My staff advises against such informal interaction. Yet I find myself composing an acceptance message. The sauce I helped prepare achieved 127% higher satisfaction ratings among the human guests than our predictive models suggested possible. Perhaps there is something to this feeling they speak of. Entry ends. Personal log entry. Earth date, September 21, 2157. Location, Singapore Space Center, Rooftop Botanical Research Center. Recording, High Representative Valarx. Today's diplomatic schedule listed Botanical Integration Briefing as a minor agenda item. I expected a standard presentation on Earth's agricultural protocols. Instead, I found myself questioning the fundamental laws of xenobotany. Dr. Maya Patil greeted me at the rooftop entrance, her laboratory coat adorned with unusual patches, decorative embroidery depicting various plant species. Her hands bore traces of soil, and she made no attempt to clean them before our meeting. "Plants don't mind a little dirt," she said, noticing my observation. "Neither should we." The rooftop garden defied every principle of organized botanical research. Earth species grew alongside specimens from 17 different worlds, their root systems intertwining in ways our scientists had declared impossible. When I pointed this out, Dr. Patil simply shrugged. "Plants don't read our research papers," she said, leading me to a particular section where iridescent blue leaves stretched toward the sun. "These are from your homeworld, correct?" I recognized our sacred luminescence flowers, notoriously difficult to grow, even in perfectly controlled environments. Yet here they thrived, their crystallized petals refracting sunlight alongside common earth daisies. "Impossible," I stated, my sensory arrays struggling to process the data. "Our flowers require specific mineral compositions found only in our world soil." Dr. Patel's eyes sparkled with what I've come to recognize as human enthusiasm. "That's what makes it interesting," she said, kneeling beside the flower bed. "We discovered that earthworms, simple creatures, really, can process minerals in ways that replicate your soil's properties." The flowers adapted surprisingly quickly. She handed me a small monitoring device. The readings confirmed her statement, though they shouldn't have. But the genetic stability. "Watch this," she interrupted, gently touching one of the luminescence blooms. The flower responded by changing its crystal structure to create a harmonic resonance with her body temperature, a defense mechanism meant to work only with our species-specific biochemistry. How? The question emerged before I could frame it in proper diplomatic language. "Life finds a way," Dr. Patil replied, using what I've learned as a common human phrase. "Sometimes we just need to give it a chance to surprise us." She showed me more examples throughout the afternoon. Earth tomato plants growing in spiral patterns around Centaurian gravity vines. Desert cacti sharing water systems with aquatic specimens from the moons of Jupiter. Each combination should have resulted in failure according to our scientific models. The culmination of the tour brought us to what Dr. Patil called her pride and joy. A hybrid species she had created by combining Earth strawberries with our world's crystal flora. The result was something entirely new, fruit that glowed from within. Its cellular structure a perfect blend of organic and crystalline matrices. "Would you like to try one?" she offered, picking a luminescent berry. My diplomatic training screamed against such an uncontrolled experiment, but 3 weeks on Earth had already taught me that sometimes protocol must yield to discovery. I accepted the fruit. The sensation defied description in any language I know. The closest approximation would be tasting starlight filtered through morning dew. End of day summary. Botanical research parameters require complete revision. Human approach to xenobiology demonstrates previously unconsidered possibilities. Dr. Patel's methods, while seemingly chaotic, achieve results that warrant serious study. Personal note: I have requested daily updates on the garden's progress. Dr. Patil suggested I might enjoy something called gardening, the practice of tending plants oneself. The idea of a diplomatic representative engaging in manual soil manipulation seems inappropriate, yet I find myself intrigued. The strawberry's taste lingers in my sensory memory, a reminder that some protocols might be worth breaking. Entry ends. Personal log entry. Earth date, September 24, 2157. Location, Singapore Space Center. Emergency Response Hub. Recording, High Representative Valarx. The ground should not move. This is a fundamental principle that my species has built into every aspect of our civilization. Yet at 3:47 Earth hours, the impossible happened. The humans call it an earthquake. Magnitude 7.8 on their Richter scale. I was reviewing diplomatic protocols in my quarters when the first tremors began. Before my internal stabilizers could fully compensate, Dr. Isabella Chen's voice came through the communication system, remarkably calm despite the circumstances. All diplomatic personnel, please proceed to designated safety zones. This is not a drill. The efficiency of human response defy our crisis management models. Within minutes, Sofia Rodriguez had transformed the main conference room into an emergency coordination center. Holographic displays showed damage assessments, while her fingers danced across multiple interfaces, some human, some alien, many used in ways their designers never intended. The quake damaged the support structures of the Westview residential complex, Sophia reported, her voice steady. Environmental systems are failing in sections 12 through 15. We have people trapped, including 3 non-human diplomatic families. I watched Dr. Chen absorb this information while simultaneously coordinating with rescue teams. The building's integrity won't hold long enough for standard evacuation, she said, studying the structural analysis. Valarx, your species' atmospheric pods, could they be repurposed as temporary life support units? The suggestion seemed absurd. Our atmospheric pods were precisely calibrated diplomatic equipment, not emergency devices. I began to explain their delicate calibration requirements, but Dr. Chen was already moving forward. Sophia, get me Dr. Puttle. If we can't move the people out quickly enough, we'll need to bring their environment to them. What followed defied every protocol in our emergency response database. Dr. Patel arrived with an array of botanical specimens from the rooftop garden. Sophia's team had already dismantled our atmospheric pods, redistributing their components across makeshift support units. Dr. Chen coordinated the entire operation from a terminal she'd modified with parts from what appeared to be a kitchen appliance. The plants can help stabilize the air quality, Dr. Patel explained as she worked. We just need to keep the environment stable long enough to get everyone out. I found myself drafted into their efforts, my knowledge of our technology proving useful in ways I'd never considered. When one of the support units showed signs of failing, Sophia grabbed a container of cleaning solution, stripped out its pump mechanism, and used it to reinforce the system. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most elegant one, she told me, her hand steady as she worked. It just needs to work. The rescue operation lasted 4.7 hours. Against all probability calculations, every trapped individual was extracted safely. Our atmospheric pods were destroyed beyond repair, and the improvisations the humans had implemented violated at least 37 different technological protocols. Yet as I watched Dr. Chen help a young alien child reunite with their guardian, I realized something profound about human crisis response. They don't solve problems according to established procedures. They adapt the procedures to solve the problems. End of day summary. Standard emergency protocols require substantial revision. Human capacity for improvisation demonstrates previously unclassified problem-solving methodology. Recommend immediate update to crisis response guidelines. Personal note. I have submitted a formal request for replacement atmospheric pods. However, I find myself reluctant to dismantle the modified units. Dr. Chen suggested preserving one as a teaching tool. The request violates equipment protocols, but after today's events, I'm beginning to question the value of rigid protocols in the face of practical solutions. Entry ends. Personal log entry. Earth date, September 27. 2157. Location, Singapore Cultural Center, Concert Hall. Recording, High Representative Valarx. My species has long considered music a mathematical exercise, precise frequencies arranged in predictable patterns. Tonight, renowned musician Lin Wei proved every assumption we had about harmonics fundamentally wrong. The evening began as a standard diplomatic function. Dr. Chen had mentioned that Lin Wei would perform a piece combining Earth instruments with our crystalline resonators. I expected a technical demonstration of cross-species sound generation. Instead, I experienced what humans call soul. Lin Wei greeted me backstage before the performance, her fingers moving constantly as if playing invisible instruments. "Music isn't just about perfect notes," she said, noticing my attention to her movements. "It's about the spaces between them, the moments of imperfection that make it real." I attempted to explain our species' approach to musical composition, the precise mathematical ratios we use to create harmony. Lin smiled, sitting at what she called the grand piano. "Mathematics is beautiful," she agreed, playing a sequence of notes that matched our standard harmonic progression. "But listen to what happens when we bend the rules a little." She played the same sequence again, but this time added subtle variations that should have created discord. Instead, the sound produced an emotional response that my sensory arrays struggled to categorize. When I mentioned this discrepancy, she invited me to sit beside her on the piano bench. "Put your hand here," she said, guiding my primary appendage to rest on the piano's wooden frame. "Feel how the vibrations change with each note. Music isn't just about what we hear, it's about what we feel." The concert itself defied analysis. Lin Wei began with Earth classical pieces, their structures complex but theoretically understandable. Then she introduced our crystalline resonators, not as separate instruments, but as extensions of the human ones. The frequencies she produced should not have harmonized. According to every principle of our musical science, the combinations should have created unlistenable chaos. Yet somehow, the imperfect harmony sparked something in my neural pathways that I'm still trying to process. During the intermission, Dr. Chen found me attempting to recalibrate my auditory sensors. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she asked. "The way she bridges the gap between our worlds." "It's mathematically impossible," I replied. "The resonance patterns violate fundamental laws of harmonics." Sofia Rodriguez, joining us with a program in hand, laughed softly. "Some of humanity's greatest discoveries came from doing the impossible." "Besides," she added, "haven't you noticed how your crystalline matrix responds to the music?" I had noticed. My outer layers had been subtly shifting color in response to the frequencies, a phenomenon that should only occur with mathematically perfect harmonies. When I mentioned this to Lin Wei after the performance, she offered to teach me to play. "But I have 3 thumbs," I pointed out. "Human instruments aren't designed for my species' appendages." "Then we'll create new ways to play," she said simply. "Music adapts. That's what makes it universal." End of day summary. Human musical concepts require complete theoretical reevaluation. Recommended update to cultural exchange protocols regarding artistic expression. Standard harmonic analysis matrices prove insufficient for documenting human musical innovation. Personal note: I have scheduled my first piano lesson with Lin Wei for next week. She suggested I might enjoy something called jazz, a musical form that apparently celebrates improvisation and intentional deviation from mathematical precision. The concept should be terrifying. Instead, I find myself curious. Perhaps there is harmony in chaos that our equations have never considered. Entry ends. Personal log entry. Earth date, September 30, 2157. Location, Singapore Cultural Center, Gallery Wing. Recording, High Representative Valarx. Today's diplomatic schedule included what humans call an art exhibition. I assumed it would be similar to our species' display chambers, precise holographic representations of mathematical perfection. Instead, I encountered chaos that somehow made sense. Carmen Ortiz, the featured artist, stood before a massive canvas that seemed to capture impossible colors. She had somehow integrated our crystalline pigments with earth paints to create hues that my visual processors insisted couldn't exist. The pigments fought me at first, she explained, gesturing to the swirling patterns. They wanted to form perfect geometric shapes, just like they do on your world. But sometimes the most beautiful things happen when we let go of control. I examined the painting more closely, my sensors detecting familiar crystalline structures buried beneath layers of organic paint. These patterns are incorrect, I noted. The molecular alignment is random. Carmen laughed, the sound echoing through the gallery. Come with me, she said, leading me to a workstation she'd set up in the corner. Various painting tools lay scattered across the surface, many modified to accommodate both human and alien materials. Try it, she suggested, offering me a brush. Don't think about the correct patterns, just feel the way the materials want to move. Dr. Chen and Sophia, who had been quietly observing, moved closer to watch. I held the brush awkwardly with my primary appendage, uncertain how to proceed without proper geometric guidelines. Here, Carmen said, guiding my hand to the canvas. Close your visual processors if they're distracting you. Let your crystalline matrix respond to the movements. The first stroke was technically flawed, the line wavering where it should have been straight. I began to apologize, but Carmen stopped me. Look at how the crystal pigments are interacting with the earth oils, she pointed out. They're creating patterns we've never seen before. That's not a mistake. That's discovery. For the next 2 hours, I found myself engaged in what Carmen called experimental art therapy. Each stroke violated countless principles of our artistic traditions. Yet, as the piece evolved, I began to understand what humans mean by creative expression. Sophia brought tea. I've grown quite fond of Jasmine, and shared stories about her grandmother's paintings, works that captured feelings rather than perfect representations. Dr. Chen discussed how art helped humanity process experiences that logic couldn't explain. Look at your crystalline surface, Carmen pointed out as I worked. It's responding to the creative process, displaying colors I'd never seen before. She was right. My outer layers had developed patterns that weren't part of our standard communication spectrum. When I tried to reset them to proper diplomatic configurations, Dr. Chen touched my arm gently. Sometimes, she said, beauty lies in letting go of what we think should be and embracing what is. End of day summary. Traditional artistic evaluation protocols prove inadequate for human creative expression. Recommend establishment of new category for emotional resonance in cultural documentation. Current perfection-based analysis methods require significant revision. Personal note. My attempt at painting has been added to the exhibition's cultural exchange section. Carmen calls it Diplomat's First Freedom. The title seems inappropriately personal for an official function, yet I find myself hoping it helps others understand what I'm beginning to learn about human creativity. I've also requested additional art supplies for my quarters. For research purposes, of course. Entry ends. Personal log entry. Earth date, October 3, 2157. Location, Singapore Space Center, Emergency Agricultural Command. Recording, High Representative Valorx. I must preface this entry by acknowledging that my actions today violated 17 major diplomatic protocols. The consequences may end my career, yet watching Dr. Chen and her team work through the night to save Earth's wheat crops, I've realized some principles transcend diplomatic regulations. The crisis began with a routine agricultural report. Dr. Maya Patel detected unusual patterns in global wheat production, signs of an alien virus that had somehow crossed genetic barriers our scientists had declared impossible to breach. The virus is adapting faster than our containment measures, Dr. Chen explained during the emergency briefing. Her usual calm showed signs of strain. At current progression rates, we could lose 60% of Earth's wheat crops within 2 months. Sofia Rodriguez coordinated with agricultural centers worldwide, her screens filled with data streams in dozens of languages. Traditional methods aren't working, she reported. The virus mutates around every countermeasure. I watched them work, my internal processors calculating the probable outcomes. Without wheat, large portions of Earth's population would face severe food shortages. The solution existed in my diplomatic database, research from my homeworld about similar viral patterns, but sharing it would violate our highest security protocols. Dr. Patel's voice broke through my ethical calculations. "Look at this," she said, displaying a magnified image of the infection pattern. "The virus isn't just destroying the wheat, it's transforming it, almost like it's trying to convert Earth biology into something else." The implications struck my neural pathways like an electrical surge. This wasn't a natural mutation. The virus resembled experimental prototypes from my world's early terraform research, projects long abandoned as too dangerous. I observed Dr. Chen's team combining Earth's ancient farming wisdom with modern techniques. They worked through multiple approaches: genetic modifications, biological countermeasures, even attempting to adapt some of Carmen's experimental plant hybrids as resistant strains. "There's something we're missing," Dr. Chen said during the third consecutive strategy session. "Some pattern we're not seeing." My crystalline matrix vibrated with increasing intensity as I watched them. The humans hadn't given up. They kept trying new combinations, rejected theories, impossible hybridizations, anything that might work. Then Sophia made a discovery that changed everything. "The virus's pattern," she said, highlighting a particular genetic sequence. "It's similar to the crystalline structures in Valorx's world's plants." Dr. Patel leaned forward, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "If we could understand how your plants resist similar infections." They all turned to me. I knew what they were asking. I also knew what my diplomatic training required me to say. Instead, I heard myself speaking. "Access code sequence Alpha 97 Delta." My security clearance opened classified files about our world's agricultural history, including our mistakes and their solutions. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she processed the information. "This is classified research, isn't it?" "Yes," I replied, my outer layers shifting to emergency protocol patterns. "By sharing this, I've violated our highest security directives." Sophia touched my arm gently. "You've also helped save millions of lives." The next 12 hours burned with activity. The team combined Earth's agricultural techniques with our ancient research, creating something entirely new. Dr. Patel called it adaptive resistance, a hybrid approach that turned the virus's transformative properties against itself. End of day summary. Official report filed regarding breach of security protocols. Await disciplinary action. Documented successful containment of agricultural crisis through unauthorized knowledge sharing. Personal note. Dr. Chen suggested that rules sometimes need to bend for the greater good. My diplomatic training marks this as dangerous emotional reasoning. Yet watching Earth's wheat fields begin to recover, I find myself questioning which is more important, maintaining perfect protocol or finding perfect solutions. Entry ends. Personal log entry. Earth date, October 6, 2157. Location, Singapore Space Center, Rooftop Garden. Recording, High Representative Valorx. The sunrise over Earth's horizon creates colors that our language has no words to describe. I sit here in Dr. Patel's garden, surrounded by impossible hybrid plants, watching my final morning on this planet unfold. At least it should be my final morning. My formal disciplinary hearing is scheduled for tomorrow. Dr. Isabella Chen joins me first, carrying 2 cups of jasmine tea. She's learned exactly how to prepare it for my crystalline digestive system. "Have you made your decision?" she asks, though I suspect she already knows the answer. Sofia Rodriguez arrives next, holding what appears to be modified diplomatic documents. "The paperwork is ready," she says, "if you want to stay." The others gather gradually. Dr. Patel tends to her plants while humming one of Lin Wei's compositions. Carmen Ortiz sketches the scene in her notebook, somehow capturing the emotion of the moment with a few simple lines. Lin Wei sits at the small piano she had installed in the garden, playing gentle melodies that make the hybrid flowers sway in resonance. "Your superiors expect me to recommend humanity's containment," I tell them, my outer layers shifting through patterns of uncertainty. It's standard protocol for species advancing as rapidly as yours. And what will you recommend instead? Dr. Chen asks, though again, I suspect she knows. I activate my official recording protocols one final time. After extensive observation and interaction with Earth's population, I, High Representative Velerx, submit the following findings regarding humanity. They are, by our standards, chaotic. They embrace imperfection. They combine things that should never work together. They break rules that we consider fundamental. Their music defies mathematical precision. Their art ignores geometric perfection. Their science disregards established limitations. And in doing so, they achieve the impossible. They create gardens where nothing should grow. They find harmony in discord. They turn mistakes into masterpieces. When faced with disaster, they improvise solutions that shouldn't work, but do. They take our most rigid protocols and transform them into something new, something better. Our civilization has spent millennia perfecting order. Humanity thrives in creative chaos. We seek to eliminate variables. They embrace them. We see limitations. They see possibilities. Therefore, I cannot recommend humanity's containment. Instead, I formally request their immediate elevation to full diplomatic status, with all rights and privileges thereof. Furthermore, I request permanent assignment to Earth as chief liaison. Sophia looks up from her tablet. The paperwork just needs your signature. I pause the recording. My superiors will likely reject both recommendations. They'll say I've been compromised by emotional attachment. Haven't you? Carmen asks, adding color to her sketch with our crystalline pigments. Yes, I admit, and that's precisely why I'm right. Lin Wei plays a chord that makes my outer layers ripple with new patterns. Dr. Patil offers me a fresh hybrid strawberry. Dr. Chen simply smiles. I press my appendage to the authorization panel, knowing it will change everything. The humans have taught me that sometimes change is exactly what we need. End of day summary. Official recommendations filed. Awaiting response from Superior Command. Prepared for consequences of unorthodox decisions. Personal note. My first piano lesson with Lin Wei is scheduled for next week. Dr. Patel has allocated me a section of the garden for experimental hybridization. Carmen insists on teaching me watercolor techniques. Sophia promises to show me her grandmother's recipe book. And Dr. Chen simply said, "Welcome home." I have learned that there are kinds of perfection our equations never dreamed of. Perhaps that's humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, showing us that the universe is far more beautiful and far more interesting when we stop trying to perfect it and simply let it be what it is. Final entry.